Hey, everybody. Welcome to Perpetual Motion with Dr. Mo Anderson. This is a podcast about culture, communication, personal finance, and personal development. I'm your host, Mo Anderson, and my guest today is former Mrs. India USA, Sunitha Sandeep. Sunitha is a thought leader who has been actively challenging the cultural fallacy that stress, struggle, and burnout are prerequisites for creativity, happiness, and success. She is also a speaker, technical corporate leader, multi pageant winner, creative artist, wife, and a mother of two. Welcome, Sunitha.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mo. Beautiful introduction. And I'm so honored to be joining here today and discussing some of the most important stuff that's happening out here in our world today, and especially for women.
Yes,
Women.
yes, indeed. Grateful to have you here. Let's just get after it. Your website, which I've enjoyed going through and poring over in preparation for this interview. It states your mission is exploring and unleashing human potential using ancient wisdom, scientific healing, and conscious embodiment. What does that mean? And how did you decide on such a bold mission to help others?
Wow. Yeah. What does it mean? So, my own journey that happened, and I took in the different paths that I used to heal today as a
Mhm.
person, and then how I take those understanding both from a spiritual standpoint and also from a healing standpoint, and take that into a conscious living, a conscious embodiment of that soul and our spirit, how that can be manifested in our human lives in every single role that I'm in, whether as a mom, whether as a professional, whether as a partner, whether as a somebody who's going after this kind of a huge mission that I want to handle, as a coach, or anything that I do. And I think that was the missing part for me when I went through deep spiritual training, and I also did a lot of healing on myself, a lot of somatic based
Mhm.
healing, especially for somebody coming from a trauma background. We need to get into the body and then use those body level healing practices. But then I did not know how to get all of these things into my daily living
Right.
in a way that I can thrive, to go beyond just the normal conditioned way of living life. And that's where I did see that there is a huge opportunity in interleaving Eastern methodologies with Western practices, and take both of them for a contemporary lifestyle, a practical lifestyle in the chaotic world.
Wow. Great explanation, and I love the gestures and the and the movements that go through it. It's like it reminds me of Memoirs of a Geisha, how he described how graceful she was, and I also speak with my hands and my body, so I appreciate that. I hate it when people try to constrain me.
I'm also an artist. Yeah, I used to do a lot of theatrical dramas when I was growing up.
Ah,
So I have a lot of expressiveness that I do with my body, with my face, and with my expression. So just an FYI.
good to know. Sunitha, that was a wonderful explanation of your mission. Thank you for sharing that. You're also a certified trauma support specialist. And I know from our previous conversation and your excellent TEDx talk that you experienced major trauma firsthand. Please share what you can about that experience, how it impacted you and your work that you're doing now.
Yeah, so it was a medical intervention trauma that I experienced, and I was told that I had a severe nerve damage, which meant that from my elbow down, I was not able to feel anything. I was not able to move anything in my left arm, and the chances of recovery were minimal. And this happened when I was 25 or 26 years old. And till this point, I was this high achiever, the good girl, getting A's and getting into the right university, the right job, getting the right designation, title, working hard, and almost like a empowered kind of a lady and an empowered kind of a woman, that I could do what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
And then when this hit, for a second, I realized, oh my God, I'm not in control of the life. I have no clue what's going to happen to me. However, the only thing that I have is to surrender to life and respond from that place
Mm.
in a very embracing and accepting way. That's my only choice. Like, I don't have any other choice. And then it was more of a forced way of doing things. It's like, you know what, I can't do anything about it, so I have to do this. It was like a fierce grace that was forced on me to accept and surrender to life and respond to life. However, over the course of years and through spiritual teachings and through my own healing, I realized that's the only way to live life. If we ever have to feel more connected to ourselves,
Mhm.
more connected to the world, more at peace with what is happening to us, that's the only way to live. And what trauma did was it opened up an avenue for me. It became the catalyst, a door for me to begin that whole healing process on one side. And on the other side, just exploring who I am. Who am I? Like, what's deeper than all of these sufferings or all of these good things or the bad things? What's deeper than all of these positive and negative things? And I think for me, if that trauma had not happened, I don't think I would have been that serious enough in life to go and um, discover that aspect of myself, because sometimes these things begin because of a suffering.
Mhm.
We reach that point of suffering to an extent, and then we'll be like, this is not the way I want to live life.
Right.
What is the other way to explore? And then we get into a different mode. And for me, that's how I look at trauma as a positive growth. The growth from trauma, the post-traumatic growth, can lead to a positive living in life.
Wow. I'm assuming that it didn't happen that as quickly as it was in the retelling of it. Was there a period, I mean, after being high achieving, which so many of us are because that's what we're taught to do, go after the gold ring, make the A's, get into the best schools, the things you described, to go from that to being in that position where there's this loss of control, and I've experienced it as well. It's pretty devastating to suddenly realize your own frailty and humanity and vulnerability, but your mindset shifting or your thoughts about what you were going through shifting. Did it happen that immediately, or was it weeks or
No,
months?
not at all. It didn't. No, it didn't happen immediately. It took a lot of suffering.
Mhm.
It's a lot of frustration, and I developed a lot of anxiety, panic attacks. I was also clinically depressed. I went through my own phase. And then I think one day I remember just falling down on my knees, holding my stomach, and then saying, I can't do this anymore, because there was no hope. And we usually say, don't lose hope. At least have some hope in life to go further. But for me, I was at a point wherein I even had to let go hope
Wow.
and then face the current moment as it was. That I am going to accept myself with or without the nerve coming up, healing up or so.
Mhm.
And I think that for me opened up what surrender is to the present moment. And surrender is not just like, okay, I'm just good surrendering and I'm not going to do anything about it. It's surrendering to the present moment in a way that you still want to go ahead with life
Ah.
just the way you are. That's surrendering. It's not like completely giving up. It's giving up internally. It's giving up all the struggles and all the resistances that we have internally.
Mhm.
However, how we respond now to the external environment, becomes completely different because all the energy that is pent up on resisting life is now freed up. And it also changes how our mind, body, and emotions start behaving.
In what way?
So the where we are, so this is what I usually talk about acceptance.
Hmm.
Where we are at the state of our being is where the thoughts, emotions, and body sensations come in. If we are from a more accepting kind of a beingness, our thoughts, emotions, and feelings are just going to be based on that kind of a being. If we are coming from a being of resisting to life, like, I don't want this, and this is not the way life has to be, our thoughts are just a reflection of what state of being we are in.
Okay.
Which means instead of struggling to change our thoughts and trying to feel good and trying to have the right feelings and sensations and so on, we need to start shifting our attention to the state of our being.
Okay.
And then naturally, your thoughts will be in alignment with that beingness, your emotions, and your feelings. That's the shift that is something that I really want to spread awareness on.
It sounds like it would just be lighten the load as well when internally, because a lot of this is emotional and spiritual, even as you may be dealing with the trauma externally, but we're compounding it. I really, I've the concept of just surrendering to it, that is just really, really unique. I've only heard one other person talking about it. It was a physician who was, I can't remember, he was diagnosed with a really difficult disease and had to go through the same thing of being on the other side of the prescription pad. So it's not a concept we hear enough about. I'm glad you're here to talk about it. I mentioned your TED talk, your TEDx talk earlier, and the title of it is, correct me if I get this wrong, but the title of it is How Trauma, Suffering, and Struggle Can Lead to Positive Change.
Yes,
And I like that you shared that you didn't immediately have that positive change, because I think a lot of people will be like, well, I can't go from this terrible thing that just happened to this positive mindset. That's going to be
yes.
a process. But how do you begin at the point that you realize that you have to do something different?
When I hit that rock bottom and when I surrendered once, for a second, I was able to accept myself just the way I was.
Mhm.
And I didn't know what had happened, but for a few days, I felt at calm and at peace within me. And I had no clue what had happened. But then I was like, okay, you know what? There is some place within me. And I don't know how to access that place. I don't know what that place is. And then I think then began a quest for me to understand, and I think something just lights up, and intuitively we have this feeling that I think I can handle this, or I think there's something within me that's stronger than my mind, or intuitively we feel that we all have access to that in certain moments. And then it was a journey, Dr. Mo. I went through fibromyalgia. I went through chronic pains, because sometimes when your body contracts during a trauma, and when you go through all of those things,
Mhm.
it takes a while for the body to relax and our nervous system to relax. And during that mode, for me, it was a journey of severe panic attacks and severe insomnia, that even medications were not putting me to sleep. It was at that level. High amounts of anxiety and panic attacks, and um, chronic pain was so bad. Like, some days I would just sit and cry. Like, I couldn't do anything. It was just pain.
That's all.
And I had two small kids at that point of time, and I was also nursing my younger one, and I was working, and I had to take care of things at home. And it was not something that, okay, you would know that today would be a better day, and then you can take some medications, and it'll be at bay and you don't have to worry about it. It was completely, there was no pattern to this pain.
Oh.
One day, without me having to do anything, it would be fine. And then suddenly, the next day, no matter how much I have worked on it, the pain would just suddenly crop up, and severe pain. So I think the body was storing, and because I also come from a high achieving background, we have a certain tendency to numb our feelings, to numb our emotions,
Mhm.
because we want to appear strong, and that has helped us, to certain extent, maybe till 35, 40. It has really helped us to establish our career, like people pleasing, taking over responsibility of everything. um, all of these patterns, perfectionism, all of these patterns over the course of many years build up in your somatic layer in your body, because we have a tendency, as I said, to suppress emotions, to
Mhm.
suppress our feelings. If you're feeling fear, we're like, no, I'm not going to feel fear, and I'm going to do what I need to do. That kind of a mentality. We are not vulnerable, or we don't show our vulnerability. And over the course of time, for me, the trauma became that doorway. But I see this pattern,
Mhm.
often with so many other women, that they store a lot in their body, chronic pain, chronic kind of health issues start showing up. A lot of spinal related issues, neck pain, spine issues, back
Tension.
pain, lower back
Right.
pain. Yes. Yeah. So it starts showing up, and it's a very, very common symptom.
Yeah, I've definitely had the neck and the back pain, and they're like, "Well, you're on the computer too much." I'm like, "No, I haven't been on the computer. It
Yeah.
won't
Yeah.
stop." Yeah, it's this
It,
not. It's like I'm carrying the weight of the world. You realize in retrospect that
yeah.
it's all the things you're suppressing. You're describing very well what it feels like to be in that condition, and yes, we have, in African American culture, that strong black woman thing has worked to our
Yeah.
detriment. Of, you're not going to
Yes.
show, don't show any weakness, don't cry, don't flinch, and it really does wear on you. You can't keep it up. You're right, you can only do it for so long, and then it just becomes overwhelming. One of the things I read as well, also, that you espouse, is that we should stop forcing ourselves to think positive. That was interesting to me, and it makes you laugh, Eva. So, uh, I mean, for years we've had all these gurus telling us to think positive, and
Yeah.
you're saying we should not. Explain that to me.
We should not. So let's say if you are starting from a completely neutral layer, there is no negative feelings at all,
Hmm.
then try to think positive. So my teachings are more catered towards 40 plus women. My teachings are not towards somebody who is just starting out their life, or like a teenager or so, because there is not much of an emotional baggage, suppression kind of a baggage
Hmm.
till we are 35, 40. So what happens when we hit those 35, 40, and a lot of hormonal changes also begin to happen for women at this stage.
Right.
Now at this point, there is already these negative feelings, stuck emotions that are suppressed and repressed in your body.
Hmm.
Now, for whatever reason, I'm not feeling good. Then we hear teachings like think positive, be positive, have a positive attitude to life. Now I'll have to force myself to think positive.
Hmm.
And if I ask 99% of the women, when they had negative feelings, did just thinking positive sustain in the longer run? It doesn't. And there's a reason for it. It just doesn't sustain. Because what we are doing here, Dr. Mo, is there is a perspective of negative perspective. That's our beingness, right? Like that is where we are.
Hmm.
Then we force ourselves to take on a new perspective, which is all positive. Everything is good. Everybody is fine. I need to be grateful. I need to forgive everybody. We try to take on that. We try to force ourselves. And let's say we try to take our attention there. However, all of these parts that are still stuck, suppressed, negative,
Hmm.
are still there. Nothing has happened to them. You have just taken your attention away from them, and you have put your attention to a new shiny object. That's all.
Okay.
But then the minute you kind of relax, because then it takes a lot of strength and struggle to hold on to these new concepts
Mhm.
now, right? The minute you start letting go, you're like, okay, I'm just gonna relax myself. You're just gonna fall back into your negative mode of operating. So instead, stop trying to think positive, is what I tell them. Instead, go and look at why are you thinking negative? As humans, as our soul, as our spirit, as God, as
Mhm.
consciousness, the way we are made is not to be thinking negative and have all these suffering kind of emotions for us. As a kid, as a child, we were happy. We had
Yes.
immense amount of energy. We were fulfilled. We had purpose. We were not going after and chasing purpose. Or what is the next purposeful thing that I needed to be
What's my
doing?
mission?
We were we were just happy what we were doing.
Right.
Over the course of time, what happens? We build layers and layers and layers of stuff
Mhm.
over it. And now we are like, okay, so this layer is bad. I will just do the easy part and maybe think positive, and everything will be fine. It just doesn't work that way. It's not sustaining. Instead, go to those parts and dig deep, inquire within, discover within. Why are we feeling negative? Why are we behaving the way we are behaving? Why are we perfectionists? Why are we people pleasers?
Get to the core of it and don't just, you
Get
know,
to the core of it.
put icing on
And
an ugly cake. Yeah. That
yeah, that's all it is. It's an icing on an ugly cake. It's a paint that you put over, like one of my coaches, he says it's like a nail polish that you put on horse crap.
oh, wow.
I know. It was a kind of a little bit more expressiveness there.
Yes.
But that's what he says. That's what it is. We can try to put as much polish over it, but deep within, if it's not clear, we spend a lot of time, we just get exhausted over time. Instead, if you just go dig deep and clear them and release them, you can just be yourself,
And
very authentic,
just naturally feel good because
naturally.
you're in a good place. That
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense instead of this artificial happiness and positivity just to make other people happy really is what we're
yeah.
doing. Wow.
And there is also a word called as toxic positivity, which talks exactly about this, or bypassing of emotions. Which is exactly this. Like we just use the next shiny object to feel good for like 1 or 2 days, but then we get back and it's not
Interesting.
sustaining.
Interesting, like a cardiac bypass. Wow. There's so many gems here. I really am excited about what I'm learning here today. I, what about what is the difference between addiction to success, which we talked about a little bit earlier, chasing all the shiny things, and someone who has high standards or wants to do things as well as possible? Or is it the same thing?
Beautiful question. Beautiful. Yeah, it's so beautiful. Um, so the question to ask is your well being
Mhm.
related to those two? Somebody who's addicted to success, their well being, who they are within, their identity is based on success, achievements, getting one thing after the other.
Mhm.
However, for somebody who has a high standards, that's just their personality type. I just prefer such a thing. It's just my preference to be that way. However, the result of that is not going to affect their identity or their well-being within. That is the only difference. In fact, I think I went on a podcast and I even said them, it's okay. You don't have to go against being a perfectionist. There's nothing wrong in being a perfectionist.
Mhm.
It's one of the expressions that consciousness has, and it's okay because at certain points of time, like when I'm trying to do some music work or so, I love to get into that exact notes and get the exact pitch, and I strive a lot to get that.
Mhm.
Until it happens to certain way, I don't feel that the project is complete. However, no matter whether it happens or not, my well being is not affected. My identity as to whether I'm a good singer, good person, bad
Mhm.
person is not tied to that. That's all is the difference, Dr. Mo.
I got that. Great analogy. I'm like that about my writing. I can just sit and try to tweak a sentence for, 30, 45 minutes to get it just right if it's a critical part. But at the same time, life will go on. If it didn't work out that day or the next day, we'll come back to it. But it's not going to change everything about, my mood and my goals. So
Yes.
that was a really good example. Thank you for that. You mentioned burnout earlier, and we're getting short on time, but I definitely want to get to this topic of the burnout. Why do you believe there is an epidemic now of burnout? You just are seeing it, hearing it everywhere. I'm happy that more people are going for mental health and self care, but it seems to be better than ever. If it's not my imagination, or worse than ever, I should
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, yeah. I think it initially started with the pandemic, and we observed that it's more people in the healthcare who are getting burnt out. But later on, now as we see, almost everyone is actually getting burned out. Even in corporate jobs,
Mhm,
even in 9 to 5 jobs, even as an entrepreneur, like people are getting burned out. And for me, what I feel that is a kind of do it all, especially for women. We have this do it all kind of a women avatar that we compare ourselves to.
mhm,
Social media, things online, articles that we read, books that we read, we just feel that we are somewhere here, that do it all women is somewhere here.
mhm,
There is always a gap between where we are and where that do it all women is.
mhm,
And the more and more our identity is stuck in this, and our happiness is stuck in this, I have to reach here to feel happy, I have to be here to do this, then I think internally, again, the burnout can also be caused by a lot of environmental factors. That's not my area of expertise. I don't go in there at all. For me, the burnout that is caused by the within, the inner set of archetypal patterns is what I usually focus on. And for me, when and then 70-80% of the women that I work with are not overloaded, but they're overwhelmed. Overloaded is they have too much going on in their life, too many things to handle. However, if you just walk through and then understand what's happening, how much time they're spending or so, the most of the energy that's spent
mhm.
is actually on the overwhelming part within that's continuously going on and on and on. So if we try to go within and then start clearing those archetypal patterns, those conditioned patterns, those trauma can also be causing a lot of overwhelm.
Right.
All of these things, once we clear it,
Mhm.
I think we go to the depths of ourselves, and we will know whether it's overload, whether it's overwhelm, and then we should be able to take the right decision and then handle it.
Navigate it. Yeah, I've heard someone say, I don't recall who it was, that I'm not overwhelmed, I'm underhelped. Uh, and that speaks to the external part of being able to delegate and get that balance
Exactly.
as well, so that you can center yourself and get right again. I want to end our time together, and it's gone so quickly, with a fun question that I know everyone is wondering about after the introduction. You have won multiple pageants: Miss India DC, Maryland, Virginia 2021, and Miss India USA runner up 2022. And I'm sure there have been others. What do you feel sets you apart as a pageant participant? Whether I think it's beyond talent and looks? Is there something about your mindset or competitive spirit or what? I have no idea. I've never been in a pageant, but what do you feel sets you apart and makes you distinct?
I think for me, yeah, thank you. Beautiful question. I had never thought about it, and just thinking through it right now as you pose this question, for me, I think my purpose and my beingness and my calling and my passion is self-expression. And to go on the stage and express myself authentically, whether it's in the question round or whether it's in the introduction round or whether me as a woman, expression in all parts, I think that kind of pulled me into the pageantry. And yeah, and I love that journey. The love the journey of going beyond the comfort zone, especially after having two kids, our bodies have changed.
Yeah.
Am I comfortable going in my body and facing people there and completely going and trying to answer a question that can just suddenly get popped in at me
Mhm.
with no, and then I have like 30 seconds to answer. It was completely putting myself outside the comfort zone. And just doing that, believe it or not, I'm so comfortable at speaking right now, answering questions. I think that part of me wanted to come out, and pageantry was one door for me.
That's a beautiful answer. You said beautiful question. That's a beautiful answer. Tell us about your book, Live to Lead, and the services you provide, please.
Yes, all details are on my website, www.sunithasandeep.com. There's an ebook that talks a little bit about my journey and also the kind of women that I help and the problems they usually face.
Mhm.
There is also a 1 hour free masterclass on my website that talks about my Awake program, AWAKE, which is 5 transformational shifts that I do: mental, emotional, somatic, spiritual, and at the level of the soul. So, all the 5 parts are covered in the transformation because I think as women, it's a holistic approach that we need to take
Absolutely.
to go out into the world. So all details are there. And if somebody is called to work with me, all the details are on my website. They should be able to reach me from there.
Very good. We'll drop that in the show notes. She has an amazing website, guys. Lots of great information and photos. And yes, the master class. I even looked at that. I need to go back and sign up for that because I am convinced that you are onto a very good thing here. And so appreciate you sharing your time with me today, Sunitha.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mo. And I love what you're doing, the kind of message that you're spreading for everybody out there. So thank you so much for what you're doing. And I really consider it an honor for me to be here talking to you today.
Likewise. And thank you as well for listening and for joining. Remember to click like or subscribe so that you'll be notified of new episodes of Perpetual Motion with Dr. Mo Anderson. And we'll be back next week. Thank you.